Yeah.
Anyway, quickly to veterans. I mean, obviously, you're a huge advocate of the value the vets bring to business, and I mentioned it's a thread of some of the conversations I've had in this podcast. Just give us your highlights of why you think companies ought to think about hiring veterans.
You know, there's a lot to that question, but in effect, it's not what people might think the answer is. And I've learned this by working with veterans through Vet the CEO for the last 12 years, and me being one of them. So here's what I've learned, right? We are really, really good decision makers, right? So every branch has a manual on decision making, right? The Army has a manual on decision making. And the reason that's important is not only do they teach us that formally, like try to find a college course on decision making that doesn't
Right.
exist, right? But in the military, no matter what branch you're in, it's like I equate it to fitness, like trying to get fit. Like you become mentally fit because you get taught this decision making model that's been perfected over a long time in operations, and everybody learns it from privates to generals, and you run reps through it. So when
Right.
you're on training exercises, you're applying the decision making model. When you get deployed, you're applying a decision making model. It becomes second nature, and you can probably relate to this. So when we leave the military, we're like supercomputer decision makers, right? We're really, really, really good decision makers. So when you implant that brain into a company, you've got a supercomputer there. Not arrogantly, ask most veterans, they won't even like, oh, I guess I am, because I've been recently talking about this. They don't think it's a big deal, but it is a big deal. And when you implant that into an organization, it can do wonders for you. And the taxpayer has invested in that supercomputer. We ought to get more return on that taxpayer investment when people leave the military and utilize that decision making ability in organizations. And that's the biggest thing I would tell a business is trust me on that one. Bring someone in and just watch.
Right.
And they're not going to start barking orders at everybody like everybody thinks. You just watch them make decisions, and it's a wonderful thing.
That's an interesting thought. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that.